I'm gonna give you guys a quick walkthrough of how to implement sign in and sign out. So the objective is that we need to be able to just show certain content when the user does something and hide it in other circumstances. Okay, so right now we got our game. We can play something, right? Everything works, right? So now the objective is that we want to hide everything until the user signs in. Okay, so how can we do that? So I think we can just call this app component. We'll call this main content. We'll call it main. Okay, just call it main. Now we're going to define two more components. Function app. This is just going to return what? Some stuff. Hello world. Okay. I changed my mind. We're still exporting app. Okay, so we got our app component right here, okay? So inside of our app component, we now need to decide what we're gonna show, okay? So inside of here, we're gonna say, we need to figure out show sign-in form or show main content, okay? All right, so that means we need to introduce state. We're gonna say const is signed in and then set signed in. This is going to come from useState. When the app first loads, the state of is signed in will be set to false. Okay? So if signed in, so we're gonna look at that state, if signed in, and we're gonna guard against it. If the user is signed in, we're gonna show our main content. Main component, our main component, okay? Right here. So when the application first loads, we don't see it, right? So if we change this default value on line 68 to true, we'll see the game. And we do in fact see the game. So the objective now is how can we get is signed in to change? Well, we can put in a button. Just put in a button right here. We'll give it an on click. And then we'll say, okay, when this thing is clicked, we're gonna do set is signed in. We're gonna call it, we're gonna change it to true, okay? And say sign in. So watch what happens. Where's that button? Click sign in. Oops, my bad, set it false. First, set it false. Okay? So if I click this button, which function are we gonna fire? When we click this button on line 73, what's gonna happen? When set, yeah, it's gonna fire this function that we get for free from useState, okay? Remember, useState, when we call it, it's always gonna give us back an array. The first argument, or the first element in the array is the state variable. The second one is the function which will change it. So right now, as this is currently written, when we fire this, right, when we click it, we're gonna set it to true. Whatever we pass in to this call is gonna be the new value of is signed in. The function will render again, is signed in will evaluate to be true, and then we'll see the main content. So we click it, and now we see the main content. Do you have any questions, guys? So let's just move this up. Let's do the inverse, okay? So we say sign in, sign out. So obviously the other button, we're gonna make it false, right? So now you guys can see that when we sign in, we show the content. When we sign out, we hide it. Okay? That's because right here, we're guarding. We're saying, hey, make sure that this thing is true. Make sure that is signed in is true. When it is true, then we're gonna show something else. But if this is false, don't even bother looking at what's on the right. Okay? And the reason why I put inside of a component is because this is what's gonna help you break up your application into like simpler parts to think about. So we call this main. So let's now do one more. Let's just say sign in page. Right here, we'll call this one main page, okay? In week 3 of React, you guys will run across something called routing, okay? And that's gonna help us solve this problem, sorta. Okay, so we don't have a component called sign in, so let's go ahead and define it. We'll say function, sign in page, it's just a function, right? It's gonna return a div, and this div is gonna have what? It's gonna have an input, right? And the input's gonna say, it's gonna have a placeholder, and it's gonna be email. We have another input, placeholder is gonna be password. Okay, so we define this. Why don't we see this in our screen yet? Why don't we see line 70 and 71 in the screen? Yes, we haven't rendered it. Exactly what Hai just said. We need to render it in our body. Okay. Actually, we need a submit button too. Button. And then we're going to say on click. On click. We're going to do something, okay? We're going to do something here. Sign in. Okay, so when we click this button, guys, when we click this button, we want to sign in, right? I'm clicking this button, I want to sign in. But notice that this button right here on line 72, it's inside of a different component, right? It's inside the sign in page component. I want to fire what function? Okay, so how can we fire this function, set signed in, which lives inside of app.js? We need to fire this exact function right here. I promise you this works. Just think about it. When we sign in over here, it works. When we sign out, it also works. We're just firing that function. So how can we get this function, set signed in, to execute inside sign in page on line 72? Yes, we need to use properties. So where can we pass the property? Where do we need to pass it? So we're passing the property here, okay? What do we want to call it? We'll say sign in. We'll just call it sign in. Actually, this is how to do one thing real quick. So just notice that right now we're not capturing the first argument sent into our sign in page. Let's look at pops. It's console.log pops. We'll look at this page. You guys look at your console. Notice what is pops? How many keys does it have? Okay, so we're going to send it a pop now. We're going to say on sign in, and we're going to put in what? An array. Okay, let's put in an array. Let's see what happens. I have an array that's sent in. Okay, is that useful? No, it's not useful. I can't.
Maybe
in the future, it may be array. I'm just okay. So yeah,
you've done nothing. But like,
I like where you're going with this. I'm just trying to show you that like we need to pass a specific thing, and I want you guys to tell me what we need to pass. What do we need to pass? Yes, that's exactly what we need to pass. We need to pass this function right there. Okay? Now there's one more step. We now need to get that function to fire right here where this question mark is. So what do we change here? So we forget about the quotations, okay? Because if you guys do this thing right here, oops, pops, set signed in, that is a string that is passed in, okay? We're passing a string. We need to pass a function, and this is a function that we're passing in, okay? So we save it. So my hypothesis is that if we click this, we should see the main content now. My bad, it's this one, on sign in, thank you. Okay, my bad. So my hypothesis is if we click this now, we're going to call, when we click the button on line 73, we're going to look for a property called what? On signed in, what is inside that property? Set signed in. When we fire this function, set signed in, what is going to happen? Okay. Okay, so we forgot one thing, okay? We need to make sure that we know what it passes, okay? So what we want to do is pass true here, okay? We're going to pass true right here, right? But the problem, actually I think this will work now. Hold on, let me see. Okay, it does work, my bad. So we need to pass true because when we call this set signed in, right? We need to tell it that we want it to turn to true, okay? All right, do we have any questions here? Okay. Okay, yeah. So now we're gonna do one more step, okay? So now we're gonna combine line 89 through 83, okay? We're only gonna show one of them, okay? So if the user is not signed in, we'll show the sign in page. If the user is signed in, we'll show the main page. So now we go ahead and delete these right here, and then we'll delete this one. Oops, my bad, I did this wrong. My bad. One second, guys, almost there. Okay, so that looks good. So my hypothesis is that when we sign in, One will hide, one will show. So we click sign in, and there we go. Do you have any questions?
Would it matter the order that you go back? No, it doesn't.
It sort of matters.
But is signing main page and sign in, that doesn't particularly matter, right?
Yeah, because only one of these components can be shown at a time, okay? So right now, let's just go ahead and do our last part, right? Let's go ahead and extract out some of these components, right? So we're gonna go ahead and create a new file. We're gonna call this main page.js, okay? We're going to extract out everything inside of main page. And just take all of this right here, copy it, cut it, paste it here, okay? So now you're gonna see a whole bunch of complaints. Our job now as software developers is to fix it, okay? So it says use state. So it's not defined, so we need to just grab the line at the very top. Just grab this, we'll paste it up here, okay? Okay, now it's saying that, hey, main page is declared, but its value is never used, right? So what it's trying to say is that, okay, you define a function, but you don't use it in any way. And the way that we're going to use this is that we're going to export it. We're going to say, hey, export by default main page. So that means that we can now consume this component in different pages, okay? So we'll save it, we'll jump back over here, and we'll fix this. So right now you guys can see inside of our app.js it's complaining main page is not defined. Okay, main page is not defined. So now we need to import it. So we're going to say import main page from components main page. Okay, that seems good. So now you guys see the complaint turns into all these things are not defined. The reason why that is because these other imports right here are not imported inside of main.js. See, we don't have this component right here, choice card. So we just cut all of this out. We'll paste it over here. And then we just need to change this path a little bit. We need to delete this one right here. And then this one needs to go up into utilities. Okay. So now we've successfully extracted our code out of app.js. Our app.js is a little bit simpler now. Let's do it one more time now, okay? Let's do it for our sign-in page. We'll copy this. We'll create a new folder. Okay, I already know the steps. We need React here. And then we need, what else? That's it, we just need React. So now we can copy this. We jump over and paste it inside of our sign-in page. We can go ahead and export by default because we need to export this for consumption inside of a different page, okay? This is like the header, right? Remember how sometimes we had a header and we needed to just say like, hey, I'm gonna use this, I'm gonna use that. It's kind of like that. Okay, so we got one more problem. Now we need to import this into our app.js. So I'll just copy down, replace this, sign in page. Okay. And the hypothesis is if everything went well, we should be able to sign in still. So sign in. Excellent. So now this is how we're breaking up our code and breaking it up into like more consumable pieces. The routes thing that you were talking about earlier, eventually you're gonna have a bunch of these kind of like this. And it's just gonna know like which one to render, kind of. All right, so that's kind of how we can show and hide stuff on the screen, guys. The main function of today is to use state. I hope you guys have completed. Who here has not completed it yet? Who here has gotten all the way to game history? Who got the game history? Okay, so a lot of you guys. Okay, so all right, so I've been talking for a little while. It's been 15 minutes. One more time. If you have any questions about use state or any examples, you guys have any questions?
How can we extract the value of the user input?
You want to extract the value where?
The input the email.
So you know how you made it an array? How do we take, say, the username you put when you do the sign in? Like, how do you said, do we use get animal by ID?
Oh, you want to get this input right here?
Yeah.
Where do you want to get it? You want to get it inside of app, right?
Potentially, yeah, because then we might want to deliver it on the main page.
Okay, fine. That's okay. So now we'll have an email, and then we'll say set email. Set email. And then we'll say our initial email is, I don't know, an empty string. So now inside of our sign-in page, we can have on change email. And that's going to be another function. What function? Set email. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and console.log email. Okay, we're console logging email on line 12. Okay, so the objective is that when we type in here, we should be able to see this console log on line 12. So how can we do that? So inside of our sign in page, when the user starts changing on change, we're just gonna fire that function set. No, it's pops dot set email. Fuck, I forgot what it was. On change email, okay? On change email. Now we need to have another function because we also need to update this. We're gonna say const on change email, okay? So this one gets more complicated, and this is what's gonna. This is our life as we developers. Things get more complicated, right? So we need to do two things now. Fuck, is this the easier way? Hold on. I'm gonna show you what happens wrong first, okay? I'll show you what happens wrong first. So when we do E right here, E is gonna be the event of changing. There's gonna be an event. Like, what's the event? The user is typing, okay? The event has a target, which is the input. And inside of that, there's gonna be this thing called value. So let's just look at what happens. So right here, this is the event. We're passing our event. What you guys see console logged right here is coming from line 12 inside of app.js, right? So what's happening is when the user types, they're firing an event. So we need to look at something inside the event, specifically the target, okay? So E right here becomes E.target, okay? We save it, we type. So it found the input for us. So now that needs to become .value. Okay? So now you can see that when we start typing, that on line 12 inside of app.js, we'll see email and then whatever is inside of this input. Hello world. So now we've been able to successfully have a child communicate with this parent through passing a function. I know that seems kind of stupid. One day you guys are gonna need to know how to do this. Do you have any questions about this? I know this is kind of more complicated. So just know that this data, right? This data in the sign-in page from the user entering their email, it was stored inside of this sign-in page, right? But we needed to know about it inside of our app.js, right? Inside the most parent component, right? So in order to do that, we created a new piece of state on line 10, and then we passed this function set email to the child, which is the child. What's the child? Yes. And then inside of the body of that child, we executed that function. On what line is it on the right, guys? 6, yes. There's a lot going on here, guys. Yeah. I'm gonna let you guys work. It's 4:30. Let's go ahead and finish up this work, and we're gonna submit it today.